Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seat now. Thank you.
Aspetta, adesso ti dico io quando.
No, torniamo a sedere. Torniamo a sedere. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seat now. Thank you.
No, bello, secondo me. Secondo me mi
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seat now. Thank you. President of the Italian Republic, the President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, and the President of the Republic of Niger are now entering the room. The opening ceremony of the 8th edition of the Rome-Med Dialogues is starting now. The President of the Italian Republic is now taking the floor.
Signor Presidente della Repubblica Islamica
Mr. President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, Mr. President of the Republic of Niger, Mr. Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. President of ISPI, authorities, kind guests, being here at the 8th edition of the Med Dialogues is something that makes me proud, and I'm glad to open this conference. The presence of these important presidents provide this initiative with the opportunity to give a concrete testimony on how Italy look at this wide panorama of the Mediterranean Sea. Due to our history and our geographic position, The relationships that we have with these regions are fundamental. The Mediterranean Sea poses a space for cross-cultural meeting and exchanges. By quoting Fernando Fiel, this is a series of civilizations rich in diversity, but connected through the same destiny. This edition is quite exciting as we need to discuss resilience, cooperation, and other strategy to resist to our challenges. We are now inside a conflict. We're looking at tragic circumstances due to the Russian position in this moment. Europe has taken a part in a conflict which adds to poverty, scarce food and energy, and other aspects that will be discussed during these works and should be treated as something that we need to face to find mutual and shared solutions. Our task is to pose this problem and put it on the table, but also propose solutions to go out from this difficult storm. So the key words are interdependence, resilience, and cooperation. Today, in the light of our political and cultural differences, we need to delve into detail, to discuss and to consolidate our collaboration in order to face the challenges that we are now facing and the one that we will face in the future. We're finding ourselves at a crossroad. We can look at peace or at war in the future of this planet, but we should start from the principles of civil coexistence within the field of the NATO system, and in order to make this system more democratic and more egalitarian for all the countries, thus avoiding a polarization at an international level in consideration of the diversity that exists and of the need to discuss them. This two-day conference will allow us discussing different perspectives on peace, development, and security by attempting to enriching our visions and share knowledge and practices. At the very core of our discussions, there will be justice for human dignity and the dignity of all the peoples, which are so affected by the conflicts and the extremist movements, as well as by terrorism. Our purpose is to work together in concert in order to consolidate democratic and institutional processes where they are most affected or threatened, such as in Syria and in the Sahel region. I would like to take this opportunity to thank President Ghani and President Bazoum for their commitment to these issues, and they have to know that they can count on us, on the Italian Republic, for our support. The conflict in Europe also generated a crisis for food supplies on the southern bank of the Mediterranean Sea. This obliges us to find solutions in order to promote food systems that are also sustainable and able to produce wealth for the local populations and the local supply chains, as well as protecting the ecosystems. This is a global challenge which might affect the Mediterranean area with additional problems, issues, and insecurity. So tomorrow, we will discuss this topic into an interministerial meeting involving the Mediterranean countries and the international organizations in order to mitigate this emergency. We need to make concrete steps. These difficulties push us to strengthen our cooperation by avoiding certain narratives according to which the Mediterranean Sea is always affected by instability and crisis. Instead, being unified in the same vision, including African and European countries that work in concert in true and concrete partnership, provides us with a valuable element and a valuable solution for our challenges. And I'm talking about our potential, our resources, our materials, starting from renewables, as well as human resources, which we should develop and promote and enhance, also thanks to the instruments provided by the European Union. The presence of these countries and into these difficult challenges pushes us to have political attention towards the southern bank of this sea. Having a long-term vision also on migratory flows is fundamental, as these flows cause poverty for several origin countries. And this is a global challenge, something that also the International Organization of Migration knows. There is no point of thinking that this will end alone. We should work together and commit to manage this issue. Diplomacy, national and international institutions, starting from the European Union, are called to work together in order to face this phenomenon. And I think that there is a difficult situation also in Libya, and it's still lasting since several years. And here we have the life of human beings at stake. In order to reach prosperity and stability, both in the European Union and in the southern countries of the Mediterranean Sea, we should commit to solve these issues. The difficult challenges that we're facing call us to work in concert with solidarity. The Mediterranean dialogues are in charge of strengthening this awareness that we have in this seat, and also the strength to find mutual paths. So I wish you a fruitful job.
The President of ISPI, Giampiero Massolo, is now taking the floor.
Signor Presidente della Repubblica, signori
Mr. President of the Republic, Mr. President of Mauritania and Niger, Mr. President of Senate and the Chamber of Ministers, dear ministers, authorities, ladies and gentlemen, what can I say after I have listened to the words of I listened to the speech by the President of the Republic? Basically, he has reiterated that greetings is important, the greetings towards all of you, men, women, working for ISPI, and on behalf of myself, let me also express my gratitude for your presence, not only in attending this conference, but also in delivering your speech directly. Obviously, any comment would be nonsense. So just a couple of information concerning the method and a wish. The first is, if we measure success by the lengthy and duration. This is the 8th edition of MED Dialogues. We have had 8 editions so far, and we have strongly believed in the fact that dialogue, speaking, pays off, is the only way, is the only formula to achieve success. My second comment regarding the method is the ever-increasing desire to embrace a positive agenda, especially when it comes to sailing in the storm. This is MED, and we insist on believing that this represents consistency, and consistency is the witness of success. And then a wish. I can't say that we are not concerned when witnessing a situation where dialogues and riots are becoming increasingly important. Everyone has its own opinion about them, but we keep on believing that fora like this, promoted by the civil society, by research institutions, which combine together authorities, governments, economic sphere, and cultural sphere, provide a great contribution and mitigate differences. The reminder is up to the initiatives that governments take and the constant effort by diplomacies. On our part, we tried to accomplish this goal, and we will continue in this regard. Thank you.
The Italian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Antonio Tajani, is now taking the floor.
Mr. President of the Republic, Presidents of the Republic of Mauritania, of Niger, President of the Senate, President of the Chamber of Ministers, dear guests, I believe these days of conference prove how much we have and we can achieve and what we can do to strengthen the connections between Italy, the Mediterranean Sea, and African countries. The presence of the head of state, and I truly thank him for joining us today and for opening this day with his speech. Everything proves that Italy is strongly committed to strengthen ancient connections and new connections, which, however, remain fundamental to ensure peace and stability in the Mediterranean Sea and in African countries. Unfortunately, Russian aggression against Ukraine has shocked what used to be a complicated situation following the crisis of Lehman Brothers, which involved all countries of the world after the coronavirus epidemic. However, we have to react and withstand the storm. And I would like to thank the President of ISPI for dedicating a great effort in organizing this event. These days, with all the meetings and all the dialogues, will be useful to strengthen security as well as stability in an area which is called to address dangers, risks, as reminded by the President of the Italian Republic. The risk of terrorism, for example. We know and we are aware that organizations move not as much as they did some years ago, yet they are able to reorganize their structures, and it creates concern. And the joint reaction of EU countries and countries like Mauritania and Niger is of utmost importance, as well as the presence of countries like Jordan, Egypt, even Morocco, as well as all the North African countries. When acting together, they can take actions to tackle and win against the evil of terrorism. Unfortunately, we also face an energy crisis and a food crisis, which exacerbate insecurity. In addition, we are witnessing a digital and green transition, which is extremely important, yet it will require efforts, although in full awareness that agriculture industry at all levels, national, international, must be able to adapt to new challenges. The European Union Med agenda, which is worth 7 billion euros, is strongly wanted by Italy, Mr. President. They are all initiatives, just like the Global Gateway, have the intention of mobilizing up to 300 million euros. And they all represent tools which have a clear goal. And only by working together shall we be able to build a positive interdependence when using the common goods of the Mediterranean. Peace, prosperity, security, health, blue economy, digitization, innovation, science, and technology. If we can work together, will we be able to win all challenges, as you mentioned before? And the talks characterizing this conference start from the awareness of our independence. The Mediterranean Sea has always been a crossroad and a hub of civilization, a platform which connects Europe, Asia, and Africa. And Italy is strongly committed to act as a protagonist for a fruitful cooperation between Europe and Africa. Yet we don't want to look at Africa as from the view of the Africa, so we want to focus on the spirit. Our commitment intends to provide shared answers for the functionality of supply chain, food crisis, food security, and Russia-Ukraine war and the pandemic emergency have unveiled the fragility of the supply chain. We want to diversify markets to supply raw materials. And this has become an economic and crucial need to achieve our independence and sovereignty. Italy has strengthened and will keep on strengthening the cooperation with the Mediterranean partners to diversify its own energy supply sources and will resort to renewable energies, an action that, thanks to a specific gas pipeline, allow our country to contribute effectively to achieve energy security across Europe. We all want Italy to become a major energy hub in Europe. It's a great challenge to make sure that Italy can keep on being a great protagonist in the Mediterranean area, thanks to its ability to deal with neighborhood countries and friend countries as we are doing today. Exchanges between European countries are bound to increase, and that's the reason why we want to act as the protagonist. And COP26 of Sharm el-Sheikh has shed light on the need to protect the most affected countries, thus raising the bar to reduce emissions. The fight against climate change as well is one of the root causes for the flee or the escape of many African people from their homeland, their home countries, because unfortunately, climate change often kills agriculture, which is the only resource they can count on. During my mission in Niger as a president, I was very concerned in seeing how desert was progressing, was growing towards the capital. Unfortunately, and they are bound to die due to climate change. And this is why we need a strong commitment, because if we fail to solve this problem, how can we eradicate terrorism? How can we eradicate poverty and diseases? We will never be able to solve problems like immigration. And we are called to work together, but we have to make the difference and act at the root of the problems. Mr. President, when I led the parliament, I insisted on Europe for achieving a great plan for Africa, 100 billion euros of investment to promote growth and to fight the major problems affecting not only Africa, but also Europe. thus adopting a strong strategy based on friendship. Mr. President, I do believe that we are required to promote a season characterized by a stronger diplomacy, even in economic terms. I believe that economic diplomacy can represent the protagonist of the upcoming years. We are called to promote missions to foster growth from a commercial perspective as well as from an industrial perspective, so as to strengthen joint ventures already existing and the new ones, so as to make sure that our economies can work together, because we have 4 million of small and medium enterprises and industries which have a great savoir-faire, a great know-how. We have so many resources we desperately need, and if we combine our know-how with your resources, means that we can finally create a collaboration that can benefit your populations and thus favor an ever stronger friendship between us. It goes without saying, we also need to strengthen transports. So by land and by air, we have the sea motorways. And I think we should connect African infrastructure with the Trans-European network, so as to ensure a great development and so as to build ports. With the recovery plan, we are strengthening the port system of Italy. This means promoting the development of trade. It means fostering opportunities, growth for everyone. Obviously, our cooperation relations, in my opinion, yesterday we were talking about it with the Egyptian president, the prime minister, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. We have strong cultural relations, which are different yet common. We are interdependent. And this means we have to be able to promote exchanges. As a Minister of Foreign Affairs, we are working a project to favor the presence in our schools, in our universities, of young people coming from North Africa, and to allow them to come to Italy, train, and then go back to become managers. But at the same time, we want our young people to study in African university as well as in Gulf countries, to better know that area and to better know those cultures, thus ensuring an exchange between managing classes, people who used to work together, to study together, and become the protagonist of the future. In my opinion, this is a vital tool. We will promote scholarships to favor the integration of non-European countries joining our universities and schools. This means creating job opportunities, training top management, which will be employed in new joint ventures aimed and designed to promote employment and growth. At the same time, as we have spoken with the President of the Republic, we have to work with the ministries of many countries joining us in this conference. We have spoken about migration as well. We are called to work together by solving the problem at the source. We are called to promote regular migration flows. Mr. President, as you know, the other day, at the Fiumicino airport, we welcomed more than 100 people coming from camps in Libya. This was a very strong message revolving around reception for Italy, but also a clear sign that we are committed to tackle irregular migration flows and criminals. These were people really suffering and who had suffered in the past. And now they have been received and they will be granted job opportunities in Italy. So regular migration flows. Mr. President, we are preparing a strategy to favor the reception of skilled workers and young people that can be easily employed in Italy and that can be fully integrated. In my opinion, this should be one of the great efforts we make. If we succeed, if in doing so, we could effectively fight against those who are trying to poison the Mediterranean Sea. The head of state is right when he sheds light on the situation in Libya. We want to effectively work under the supervision of the United Nations to deal with ever-increasing problems which risk exacerbating. Libya is a friend country and close to us, with the ability and resources to grant prosperity and growth in the Mediterranean Sea. If we see it being united, seeing them united is our strategic interest. Mr. President, we will stick with your suggestions and we will keep on doing so. The stability, to grant stability in the Middle East is also important. We have to work there as well, very effectively. Let me take this opportunity to thank Jordan for what they're doing to ensure stability in their country and to ensure in Jerusalem the respect, dialogue between the representatives of different religions. If you kill other people in the name of God, you are killing God itself. We have to work there, even when it seems to be difficult. If we manage to make Christians, Jewish, and Muslims speak, believing that there is always someone above us, maybe we could mitigate the existing violences. Two peoples, two states, Palestine and Israel. I mean, we have to work to ensure stability across the region as it means reducing migration flows. We are well aware of what Jordan is doing to receive migrants. All the bordering countries are suffering as they are called to provide concrete answers to those fleeing from difficult situations. In conclusion, Mr. President, I hope these days to be not just a moment in which we discuss and we deliver interesting speeches. I hope these days can be an opportunity to set the foundations, to work concretely. We need to be pragmatic. We need to achieve results immediately by working together, hand in hand, waiving egoism sometimes. Sometimes we are called to set the egoism aside. Of course, each country is called to protect national interests, which is important, but we cannot damage the interest of the others. This is why I believe that it's important having three personalities here, head of states, and this proves that dialogue exists, it can be enhanced, and only by dialoguing and only by speaking, and hopefully Ukraine and Russia will manage to negotiate and to achieve peace, because peace is what really ensures independence. Invasion can never be accepted. However, we are still called to work to achieve peace, as we are doing today. Mr. President, I believe that the meetings you had with your counterparts in Niger and Mauritania represent real steps, cornerstones to strengthen dialogue in an area which deserves to live in peace and which has to achieve growth with courage and resolve, has to tackle the problems and win the major challenges to ensure peace, prosperity, well-being, and better perspectives to billions of people, because in 2050, there will be billions of African people who deserve to live in peace without being forced to flee from war, hunger, and climate change. Together, we will achieve it. Thank you.
President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania is now taking the floor.
صاحب الفخامة
Your Excellency Sergio Mattarella, President of the Italian Republic of Italy. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Mr. Sergio Mattarella, the President of the Republic of Italy, for organizing the 8th session of the Mediterranean Dialogues. I'm thanking him for his kind invitation and praising his accuracy in managing these meetings. I highly appreciate the pioneering role of these Mediterranean dialogues, which have been consolidating one time after another its privileged position as a framework of consultation on significant security and development issues that affect the people's destiny on both shores of the Mediterranean. Our country, the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, doesn't directly overlook the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, but it remains its first gateway to the Sahel countries and Sub-Saharan Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, the security of our world today is in extreme danger because of the expansion of hotbeds of tension and armed conflict, social unrest, and the growing spread of extremism, terrorism, and organized crime. And we are also looking to these challenges. So this situation is also linked to the inflation, economic stagnation, and have a profound impact on various aspects of life. Especially because nowadays the world hasn't yet fully recovered from the catastrophic repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic. So the title of the Med Dialogues focuses on two main issues: security and development. So security and development are critical challenges faced by people in this region and the world as a whole. And there can be no growth or comprehensive development without solid security and sustainable peace. Based on these ideas, we in the Islamic Republic of Mauritania have adopted an integrated strategy integrated into our approach to security challenges. Our strategy follows this plan of action: modernizing and strengthening our army and security forces. Our efforts have been concentrating on training and raising the operational capabilities of the army and security forces by fortifying intelligence networks, reorganizing the security system, establishing special units, and active coordination with regional and international partners. Strengthening the legal arsenal of terrorism litigation by speeding up criminal treatment procedures for related offenses, drying up the sources of financing for terrorist activities by closely monitoring the flow of money, regulating disbursement procedures and the movement of funds, and monitoring fake NGOs. Combating illegal immigration is a challenge, not for Mauritania because it serves as a transit country, but poses a real dilemma for receiving countries. In this context, we have adopted a series of firm measures and established a viable legal arsenal to curb the flow of illegal migrants, to prevent people trafficking and other cross-border practices and crimes. These measures are combined with tremendous efforts to strengthen social cohesion, combat poverty, injustice, fragility, and exclusion, and consolidate good governance and individual and collective freedoms. Our strategy wasn't limited to the military and development spheres. It included an intellectual one, which is the crucial element, as the radicalization of ideas is often the origin of violent actions. Extremist ideology transforms the environment, which becomes the fertile ground for actual destructive, terrorist, violent, and lethal offenses. Therefore, we worked to purify minds from the seas of intellectual extremism by spreading the culture of peace and love among the values of tolerance, moderation, and brotherhood as authentic pillars of the Islamic religion. We were also keen to correct intellectual and doctrinal deviations. We believe that victory over violence and terrorism will not be sustainable unless it is an intellectual victory as much as a security victory. This is the reason behind multiple meetings between scientists and our young people. Thanks to scientists, many of them are back on the right path, having received support and assistance to reintegrate into everyday social life. Furthermore, they set up the African Peace Conference annually in cooperation with Abu Dhabi Peace Forum. In summary, security is a concept that goes beyond the mere defense of territorial states. Security includes the preservation of social cohesion and the safety of individuals and groups in the face of extremism and terrorism, as well as the evil values of tolerance, openness, and justice, which are initially the quintessence of the three monotheist religions and their profound essence. By virtue of the depth of interdependence and mutual influence between different states, security is no longer a matter that each state conducts in complete isolation from other countries, but has become a collective international affair. Lasting peace will be possible only in the context of security for all and in the context of comprehensive and sustainable development. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Mediterranean dialogues are a model of openness, acceptance of the other, and dialogue to strengthen collective action to address common challenges. I express my pleasure and satisfaction in participating in this 8th edition of this Mediterranean dialogue. It will strengthen our collective capacity to promote economic integration among our countries, enhance the implementation of agreements that will stimulate investments, develop regional partnerships, and constantly improve the comprehensive and sustainable development of solid security and lasting peace. Thank you, and peace be upon you.
The President of the Republic of Niger is now taking the floor.
Monsieur le Président de la République d'Italie,
Mr. President of the Italian Republic, President of the Republic of Mauritania, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants to this opening ceremony of the 8th edition of Med Dialogues. Mr. President of the Italian Republic, I would like to say that it is an honor for me to have the possibility to talk to this important audience during such an important occasion for dialogue. And I would like also to thank the Italian Minister of Foreign Affairs for inviting me and for giving me this possibility in order to be an active part during this debate and discussion, starting from an important perspective, that is to say, the perspective of the Sahel countries. So this forum, and again, this is the 8th edition of Med Dialogues, decides and tries to take into consideration an important factor, that is to say, a new border of Europe, a new frontier of Europe that is not only limited to the Mediterranean Sea, that tries to encourage the cooperation with Northern African countries, and that also tries to include the countries of Sahel. This is all possible thanks to new technologies and innovation, and therefore borders have completely changed over recent years. Right now, we all feel closer to Europe compared to the past. And this is definitely normal. The problems that may take place in our area, that is to say the Sahel area, are also problems that have a more direct impact on Europe as well. So today, the most important topic is safety and security. This is more important than ever. And we all have to understand that we have a shared common destiny. So during these meetings, we would like to try to make you understand how we face some specific challenges and difficulties so that you will be able to properly discuss about those challenges and difficulties. Also, when it comes to your own country, to your own region. And this will also give you the possibility to fine-tune also some tools and instruments to be better, to understand a little bit better the different challenges of our region. In the Sahel region, terrorism and violence is a widespread problem. 2 days ago, a terrorist leader was killed in Syria. This information was provided to the general audience 48 hours later. We all have seen some images of terrorists in Mali, for example, thanks to social media and social networks. while they were organizing a specific ceremony and event, gathering thousands of soldiers in order to find the new leaders of the Islamic State. Of course, they will work and be based in Syria or Iraq, for example. It means that terrorism nowadays is not only based in the Middle East, but also in the Sahel region. And that specific event or ceremony taking place in Mali could also be possible in other countries of Africa, could also be carried out in other regions of Africa. So nowadays we need to face several terrorist groups that are spread throughout the world. And you also need to know that we're really close to Libya and that the southern border of Libya is carefully controlled. Starting from 2011, it has also become the main platform of the international organized crime. And starting from that specific border, all the weapons that are used by terrorist groups in the Sahel region are then offered to all the different soldiers. And that area, that region, is now the most important meeting point of all the different soldiers and terrorist members, but also of the most important groups smuggling drugs and weapons on an illicit basis. Starting from 2011 again, the different criminal groups and the different terrorist groups are exploiting that specific border in order to gain more and more profits within the different African countries. And of course, this has an extremely negative impact on Africa, on our entire region, and this phenomenon will not be stopped. It will not be easy, actually, to stop in the future. So this is why when we talk about safety and security within the Mediterranean region, we always have to understand correctly what is currently happening in the Sahel region. We also need to have a clear idea of what is necessary to do in order to properly fight against this phenomenon, and also what is necessary to be carried out on an international scale in order to properly solve this situation. And why do terrorists that are no more active in their first countries of origin are deciding right now to move to other countries, such as the Sahel region? The main reason is because within the Sahel region, we have two main problems that we can only solve by cooperating with other international countries. The first problem concerns the effects and the impact of climate change. We have already listened to the priors, excellencies talking about that, and the greatest advancement of the desert has drastically reduced biodiversity and has also deeply affected agriculture in the Sahel region. All the different members of terrorist groups active in the Sahel region actually come from those agricultural and rural communities that cannot work anymore in the fields. So the main reasons are really stick and rooted to the lack of agricultural jobs right now. And it is also rooted within the economic sphere. And of course, it has a great impact on the new generations. So this is one of the most important elements that we needed to take into consideration. Then, of course, the terrorism does not only affect rural or agricultural communities, but it also affects the entire society. But it is also necessary to adopt some measures so that we can limit the impact of climate change. Therefore, we can avoid these consequences, terrible consequences that can threaten the security, safety, and stability of the Sahel region. One of the main reasons concerning the prevalence of the terrorist groups is also linked to the fact that the Burkina Faso and also Mali governments are not operating right now. And these are all visible consequences also on other countries, such as my country. So our country, Niger, is now threatening this ongoing, constant threat. And we need to deal with this specific phenomenon on a daily basis. Another feature, another characteristic of the Sahel countries that is now quite specific is the demographic growth. The Sahel countries are now experiencing demographic growth of more or less 4% per year. Let's say 3.5, 3.8, or even 4% per year. So when we combine the effects of climate change, the impacts of climate change together with such demographic growth, you will have a situation that is definitely out of control. And this is also the base actually for migration. This is also the base for terrorism. And when it comes to the discussions that we are having right now on the international scale, we need to try to solve or to regulate those two problems. Otherwise, we will be obliged to face a more dramatic, even more dramatic situation that will concern all the other countries of Africa as well. And this is what I am currently observing, because I've also worked as a prime minister of my country, of minister of foreign affairs of my countries. And nowadays I am the president of the Republic of Niger. And I can totally assure you that over the years, we have experienced several challenging situations. We've already had the possibility to share about those situations and topics during international events, but we have to keep on discussing about those facts and aspects. So as we frequently say, Africa is not a problem for Europe. Africa represents also a comparative advantage for Europe. And I was saying that also to the Italian president of the Republic. Africa is also a beneficial element for all the other countries of the world. Nowadays, we all have to face the problem of terrorism. And African countries have benefited from a great support from Europe, way greater compared to the support received by other countries of the world. So I really have to thank Italy, and I have to thank the president of the Italian Republic for this support of this specific country when it comes to the fight against terrorism. So some months ago, for example, we received some helicopters from Italy, and I really would like to thank you for that. And I also would like to thank the Medor Foundation for their support. because quite soon some more helicopters will be delivered to Niger. So these are all very important facts for us, and we can definitely understand that Europe is now understanding that we all share a common destiny. This is also true for other European countries, of course, because they are all increasing this support towards African countries, because we do not only receive a military support, but also other types of support in other sectors, such as the economic one. And so if Europe is active and is ready to support us, it also means that Europe understands that Africa can be a beneficial partner for Europe. So today in Africa, we have a lot of resources, but unfortunately, we are lacking on specific skills and competencies, and we are also lacking on investments in order to properly develop those resources. This will also be linked to the discussion about climate change. We need to decide common and shared solutions in order to face the challenges of the future. And the mechanisms we can propose within our countries are not satisfying. We need to rely on external funds. But the resources are present in Africa nowadays. It is just that it is difficult to have access to those resources. We need the support of other countries, and we need greater investments in order to properly use our own resources in order to produce the necessary energy that we need in order to have a greater situation within Africa, but also on the international scale. So this situation, this actual situation, will definitely have an impact on the international stability. And of course, we have to keep on talking also about migration, but we have to change our perspective, our vision when it comes to migration. We cannot keep on talking about migration as we used to do some years ago. We need to take a step forward. We need to adopt a new vision and perspective. But in order to do that, we also have to think about, for example, the conclusions of the 2015 Valletta meeting. Back at the time, we were able to define great important strategies that unfortunately did not give us the opportunity to reach some specific goals, because the actual situations were not in line with those aims and goals. Nowadays, we need to rely on a real dialogue between developed countries, banks for development, banks, civil societies, and all the different actors and stakeholders involved in this context, so that we will be able to put in place some specific laws in order to give the possibility to the developing countries of the Sahel region to properly exploit their resources. Another thing, in order to fight against the excessive demographic growth, concern some promotion of educational systems, so that those education systems can be more effective and students can get greater competencies and skills, so that they will give them the possibility to get a job during their adulthood. This is only possible if we can rely on trained teachers, and in this way, new generations will be able to live their life in our own countries, and will also give us the possibility to limit the phenomenon of migration. So those two aspects concerning the debate when it comes to the different measures to be put in place, and also when it comes to the fight against the climate change, needed to be carefully discussed all together. And I really would like to raise your awareness when it comes to the need to work together with us to improve our education system, because it is only thanks to education that we can reduce the demographic growth, and we can therefore decrease the number of people deciding to illegally escape from our countries. So this is my contribution to this opening ceremony. I was not too formal when it comes to my proposals. I am still a president, of course, but I'm here in order to play an active role during those discussions and debates. And I really thank you for your attention.
The Executive Vice President of ISPI, Paolo Magri, is now reading a message from His Holiness Pope Francis.
Do lettura parziale dell'intervento.
I will partially read the speech by the Pope Francis, which will be available on the website of the Med Dialogues. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a warm greeting to all of you partaking in this 8th Rome Med Dialogues conference, which for several years has been an appointment promoted by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation and by the ISPI in order to promote shared policies in the Mediterranean area. The importance of the topic brought to your attention calls for a fundamental consideration. This variety proves how ethical, social issues cannot be separated from the different situations of geopolitical crisis and also from the environmental problems themselves. The idea of tackling individual issues in a separate manner and regardless of the others is misleading. As a matter of fact, it involves the risk of reaching partial solutions which not only do not solve the problems, but exacerbate them. I can think about the inability to find common solutions to human mobility in the region, which continues to lead to an unacceptable and often avoidable loss of human life, especially in the Mediterranean. Migration is essential to the well-being of this area and cannot be stopped. Therefore, it is in the interest of all parties to find a solution that is inclusive of different aspects and right requests, which is beneficial to all, which guarantees both human dignity and shared prosperity. The interconnection of the problems requires that they be examined together in a coordinated and broadest possible vision, as emerged overwhelmingly already during the pandemic crisis, another clear confirmation that no one is saved alone. Such globalization of problems reappears today if we think of the dramatic war being fought in the heart of Europe between Russia and Ukraine, which, in addition to the immeasurable damage of each war in terms of civilian and military victims, generates energy crisis, financial crisis, humanitarian crisis for so many innocent people forced to leave their homes, and finally the food crisis, which affects a growing number of people all over the world. The Ukrainian conflict is in fact generating huge consequences in North African countries, which depend for 80% on wheat from Ukraine and Russia. This crisis urges us to really consider the situation from a global perspective, just as its effects are global. Therefore, just as it is impossible to think of tackling the energy crisis as an issue separated from the political one, it's impossible to solve the food crisis as an issue separated from the persistence of conflicts, or the climate crisis without taking into account the migration problem or the rescue to the most fragile economies, or even the protection of fundamental freedoms. Nor can the extent of human suffering be taken into account without taking into consideration the social crisis in which, for economical political gain, the value of a human person is diminished and human rights are trampled upon? We all need to become increasingly aware that Earth's problems are the cry of our planet, which in turn reflects the cry of suffering humanity itself. In this regard, the words spoken about 2,000 years ago by St. Paul in the letter to the Romans resonate as timely as ever, where he presents the common destiny of humanity and creation, which, says the apostle, nurtures the hope of being freed from slavery of corruption to enter into freedom of glory of children of God, where all creation groans and suffers and the birth pants to this day. This is not just a goal, but also the horizon of commitment of men and women of goodwill. May it also be the horizon of dialogues. With this hope, I wish you a joyful and fruitful work, dedicating my prayers to this end and invoking God's blessing upon all of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seat as we are going to start next session. Thank you very much. Please take your seat. Ladies and gentlemen, you are kindly requested to take your seat now as we have to start next session. Please take your seat. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are starting next session now, so please take your seat as we have to start. Thank you so much. Please
Recording
take your
stopped.
seat.